Good evening, everybody. We are back, episode 4 of our QSM TV series. Welcome. Today we have some special guests, as you can see, and as like every week, I'll let all of them introduce themselves. But you guys, if you've been following us over the weeks, you see some familiar faces here. So I am Tawana Blassingame, CEO and editor-in-chief of Queen Size Magazine. And I'll let the fellas introduce themselves. But first, we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic, photography, but very specifically, because everybody already knows, well, let me not say everybody, most of us know that photographers own the rights to images. If you don't know, if you're new to this, leave your questions in the comments below and we'll come back and we'll answer those questions. But for now, very specific questions we have from some of our readers, and I'll read those in a second. As soon as everybody introduce themselves, you guys recognize Jose. Jose was here last week. Jose, just reintroduce yourself to everybody.
My name is Jose Pagan, formerly from New York City, now residing in Florida. Fashion and art photographer. Just love to make magic, and I'm here tonight with Tawana and the gang, ready to talk on the subject. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, and my unofficial, I call him my unofficial co-host because I'm always inviting him back because he's so smart and he always adds a lot to the show. So you'll probably be seeing him a little bit more before I actually make him my official host.
What's going on? What's going on? I mean, I feel honored to be in the presence of greatness. I mean, John and Jose, I mean, I'm not worthy. But anyway, being though I have the floor, let me introduce myself. I am Nathaniel Jaye. I'm a freelance hairstylist. I reside in North Carolina, but I travel all over the world creating all types of creativity. I don't know about all that. But yeah, that's me. I am actually a contributor to Queen Size Magazine, beauty editor, blogger, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I do a little bit of everything for Queen Size Magazine now. I guess I'm a part of the family. But yeah, that's me.
Yes. John, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Tawana? How are you there?
Good. You got the mic. Introduce yourself.
I am John Staples, photographer and owner of JVMS1 Photography in New Jersey, but I also travel PA, New York, Delaware, the tri-state area, might as well say. Fashion photographer, headshots, all that good stuff. And that's about it.
Yeah, so you guys already know. Let me shout out my favorite photographer, although I love these guys. Philip, he could not be here because he had to work. So, his job won't let him be great today. So he's not here. But he'll join us in the chat when he gets off work. But we are here with two amazing photographers, and there are a lot more photographers that we could have had on the show, but we don't want to crowd up the screen. So I reached out to my two guys, the ones that always reaching out to me and checking in on me. So got to have them on the show. So let's jump into topic, right? So photography, and I know you guys have a lot of questions about photography, so feel free to ask them because I got a lot of questions about photography, so I'm gonna ask them. So does Nathaniel. But one of the things that a few of our readers have been asking about ownership to the images, when they do their photo shoots, and they want to use their photos for whatever, anything other than what they booked the shoot for. Yeah. They have to go back and reach out to the photographer and ask the photographer, can I use these images for so and so? So if you're spending upwards of 500 or whatever you guys charge for your photo shoots, let's just say for me, if I'm spending that and I want to use the photos for whatever I want to use them for, how can I do that?
Who wants to kick that off?
Since you started, go ahead, Jose.
Look, I was waiting to see if Jose was going to answer the first
He's
question.
going to take out the guns. Yeah, let me answer.
Go ahead, pull the trigger.
I approach every photo shoot differently. I mean, when it comes to If a person just says, oh, I want to use them for everything, as a photographer, need to know what everything means. Like there's usually, unless you're doing a full blanket, um, unlimited rights to an image, where you pay, probably a pretty penny and to use it wherever you want to, and you don't have to call a photographer or write them. That's different. So it all depends again on the subject of the shoot and what is intended for. You know, again, most everyday models, working models, don't have the money to every time they go shoot to buy a license, unlimited license. You know, a photographer like me per se, when I do a shoot, the person signs a release, but they'll have limited rights to use it for their promotion. So, their portfolio website, their social media, they'll be able to use it, and even print when it comes to doing comp cards. I don't mind that. Like anything that promotes them and gets them ahead, I'm all for it. There are some companies, and like if you go to Staples or whatever, they'll say they need written authorization by the photographer. So even then, even if you have the rights, you still gotta show them, hey, no, the photographer just emailed and he said okay to everything and it's in writing. So it's always, when it comes to legality, it's always tricky. Even with the stores that print the images, they always want to double check and make sure that the person printing it is authorized.
Pass the mic to John.
Well, Jose made a lot of good points there. A lot of times with these models that come to do photo shoots, they don't have the money to pay a photographer for the licenses. And the photographer can basically charge whatever they feel as though that the images are worth for that license. What people have to understand when it comes to licensing, there's a license for everything that you do. There's a license for using your images for like LinkedIn and things like that for social media profiles, and everything is valued by the photographer of what the photographer wants to charge the client for that. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's licenses for everything. And just like Jose said, the model signs a release, but they're given non-exclusive rights, meaning they have limited rights to what they can do with those images. Again, with me, I don't care. You print them, you putting them on social media, you putting them in your portfolio, you putting them on comp cards. That's all fine and well. But when you start getting into that realm of using the image to generate money, now that's a whole different subject.
Exactly.
So let's dig deeper into this whole licensing thing, okay? Because I know that each photographer works differently. So for me, and I'm not a model, but if I wanted to book, and I'm not asking this question from a magazine standpoint. I'm asking this question like, if I'm just a regular client and I want to do, right. I'm the subject. I'm not a model. I'm just a subject. I want to book for my birthday. You know what I mean? So, and I know all photographers work differently, but my question is, some photographer work with contracts, some don't. So as far as the licensing, what are we looking at? What would I need a license for? How much is this license going to cost me? And is the licensing unlimited?
Okay, I'll answer that one. So with the licenses, that's a whole different form. That's a whole different contract. If a photographer is doing something without contract, I would say don't do it. Everything needs to be black and white. You need to understand what the contract is in details, and the photographer should take that time to explain it to you. Explain to you what the contract details, the model release form, everything else. When you get into licensing, that's a whole different contract, because am I releasing my rights for those images? Is that what you're asking me? So that has to be in a contract saying I'm releasing my rights to you, but you're going to pay me X amount of dollars, whatever I feel as though it's worth, for me to say I'm releasing my rights to those images, to where as though you can use them for whatever you want to do, and I can't say anything. I had an image published in the magazine, and the company sent me a contract. This is just an example. And I was reading through the contract, and in the contract, it had that I released my rights to this image that they were using. I wrote them back and said, no, I'm not releasing my rights to this image because I may want to use this image.
Yeah.
I may want to post this image. I may want to put this image on my website. So I'm not releasing my rights to it. You know, and they corrected it and said that I told y'all have non-exclusive rights, meaning y'all can publish it in the magazine and that's it. You know what I mean? So again, when you get in a license, that's a whole different contract. That's something you need to discuss with your photographer to say, you know, hey, I want the rights to these images, and then the photographer say, well, if you want the rights, then I'm going to charge you whatever he feels as though it's worth.
Yeah, and I like to add on that because like when I deal with businesses, you know, designers or anybody, you know, that needs images to make money, you know, obviously licensing kicks in, and there's different levels of licensing with me. Like you have like your 3 months, 6 month, and year, and obviously nobody buys the unlimited because it, you know, it costs it's too out of their range for them. But you know, there's different time expirations to the licenses. So if a business says, hey, I want to use X, this picture, this picture, this picture for a social media campaign, then I have to calculate as their business how much, you know, kind of do a guesswork on how much they'll probably make within those 3 months selling those particular items. And then that's how the numbers for the licenses are built. So it's all calculations, knowing how much, you know, they're gonna make, you know, the market calculations.
So there are not standard rates or ranges. It's just based on what, you know, you feel.
It can go up in the thousands of dollars. It depends on that photographer. You know, it can go anywhere. It can go up to thousands of dollars. I mean, I've heard photographers, professional photographers that's in the industry, that I follow, like on YouTube. Like I've heard them mention that they, you know, $5,000, $6,000 to release their rights to images. But like Jose said, it has to be calculated on how much you figure that person is going to make off those images.
And it also, like, I work on a sliding scale depending, you know, if it's the girl down the street that's just starting a portfolio, or designer just starting out, or even a hairstylist that says, hey, can you just take some images for my business? I make some dope wigs. I want to shoot them and whatever, you know, like it's a sliding scale. I'm not going to hit them over the head with the big hammer. You know, when they're a business starting out, I'll give them based on that market value and price their licensing. So, you know, their licensing could be like $50, $100, you know, for 3 months. I don't go crazy. I keep it real. You know, there's some people that just want to hammer people no matter what level of business they are. Like, honestly, like, I don't live like that, you know, so that's just the way I roll.
So Jose, let me ask you a question. Just to clarify some things. So if I was to come to you and say, hey, I got this amazing lace wig line that I'm doing, and, you know, blah, 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 you would basically give me a limit on how long I would be able to use those images?
No, there's different ranges. So if you say, well, I'm going to do the campaign maybe for 6 months, I would need the licenses for that. And then I'll calculate. I mean, obviously, if you're starting business, again, that's a different type of mentality in the way I approach my business ethically, you know, and I'll be like, well, you know, realistically, you're just getting off your feet. So I'll charge you X amount, depending on how many products or how many images you're going to be using. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it all depends on how many images and
now,
time.
now, Nathaniel, don't get it confused, whereas though if you're just doing a shoot to post images on your website, or you're just posting, you're getting these images to start your portfolio, you know what I mean? Don't get that confused with, you know, having the photographer release their rights, or you completely owning the images 100%. You know what I mean? That's where it goes into a touchy subject, whereas though people think that if you come book a shoot that you own the rights to those images, but you have non-exclusive rights to, whereas though, yeah, you can put them on your website, you can post them on social media, things like that. With me, it's like, I don't care if you do it, just credit the photographer.
See, but I think that you guys are probably a little bit different, but there are, some photographers, and it's not to say that they're wrong about it, that follow this photography thing to a T, who will say, oh, you booked a shoot with me to use these images for, your social media or for your portfolio, but, yet I see my image, what they call it, my image in a magazine, and you didn't ask me to put it in the magazine, or I see my image on, somebody's party flyer, and you didn't ask me to use it for that. It's just so annoying to me. And I think this is the thing that it is. It really does bother me, and I understand the laws. I get the laws 100%. But it does annoy me. And I feel like, at some point they need to be changed, adjusted. Because when you look at, and I don't want to keep using the term models, because we're not just talking about models. We, entrepreneurs book photo shoots all the time. We book photo shoots for your kids, but it's like, they're such sticklers, like, and then they come for you, like, shout you out on social media, like, you didn't ask to use my.
Yeah,
my
but the thing is, people don't understand is, like, when you're a photographer, when you're an artist, it's like same thing with a singer or a band or any kind of musician. You create that music, it's owned by them. So if somebody says, well, I'm going to pay it at my bar mitzvah or something that's publicly televised or anything where there's a lot of people, you're infringing on their copyrights.
Right.
So I always go back to comparing it to music. It's the same thing.
So that makes sense. But why not have these things in your contract? Because I feel like there's a lot of photographers that don't work for contracts. Fly. Okay? I've worked with some of them. Won't give you a contract. And the thing is, if there's no contract present, then you have to go by, default what the law is, and just assume that the person that is booking this photo shoot know what those are, and they don't.
But listen, this is another thing. Let me chime in, because I'm learning some things now as being a part of an industry that's constantly changing. I didn't even realize that it was a whole deal with posting celebrities' pictures. Like, celebrities technically can't post their own picture unless they purchase the picture. Even though it's on the internet and they can download it. If they put it on their pages and without purchase, they can actually come after them for payment. And I've actually seen where they've shut down blogs because they're like, oh, you've infringed on all these pictures. We own all these pictures. Either you pay up or we're going to take your page down. I mean, they did that to B. Scott not too long ago. Luckily, he was able to get the page back, but he had to delete all the pictures and it's like these little laws that we don't know about. And it's like,
but that's the whole point of educating yourself, whether you're a model, magazine owner, boutique owner, a makeup artist, hairstylist. It's knowing before you jump in the water how hot the water is going to be.
Right.
It's understanding that copyright law and copyright infringements, which I actually made it part of my contract. In my contract on one of my pages, it explains the copyright law and infringing that. And this takes place a lot on social media. I want to say social media has completely changed the game in the realm of photography, because everybody wants to post a picture and add filters and write on the image and do things like that. And when you do that, you're actually damaging the image, and the photographer can come after you for that. When you're writing on an image or you're putting filters on the image, that goes under infringement laws. You're damaging the photo, and you could be sued for that.
I see Nathaniel.
So I'm gonna chime in, John, because I know this would never happen with you and I, but I'm guilty for that. And let me tell you why. Because I've spent good money on pictures, and I will get the pictures back, and they are shit. Excuse me, YouTube. But at the end of the day, and I get it what you're saying. I feel bad because as an artist, that's your work and you sensitive about that. But if I hire you and I see your work looks good with everyone else, but when you do mine, the quality is not there, and I have to edit them on my iPhone and they look better than what your work is, that's a problem. But I get what you're saying, because if it's in the paperwork, you signed the contract and you went against it, then I mean, at the end of the day, it's either you just don't use them, use the images, or you just gonna have to chump it up, or you gonna have to come up with a negotiation.
Because Nathaniel, no photographer should give you images whereas though you have to edit them. If they're crap, you invested in that. So you can go back to that photographer and be like, hey, this does not look like the work that you previously put out from XYZ.
Yeah.
Either give me my money back or we're going to redo the shoot.
I won't say no names.
Thank you.
I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, I've redone shoots because a client said, hey, and it wasn't my fault. It was just either I didn't like the way something turned out and I pointed it out to the client and I say, hey, we're just going to reshoot this. You know what I mean? And I've done that before, because you may not notice something right there at the shoot. And then when you get home, you sit down and you pull them up on the computer and you're looking at them like, oh my God, how did that get past me?
Right.
And I've redone things.
I think that it sucks that, there are a lot of workshops when you get into modeling in particular, right? There are a lot of a lot of workshops that will teach you how to walk. They'll even teach you how to pose in front of the camera. They'll teach you public speaking. They'll teach you everything, but they won't teach you the things that you need to know about photography. Like, is it up to people that are booking photo shoots to know what the laws are if it's not really their expertise? You know what I mean?
But listen, this is the thing in this country, because when my background with the police department, one thing I learned right in the academy was ignorance is not bliss.
Correct.
So you cannot walk into any business arrangement and not read things, understand it before you even reach the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I try to educate the models, because there's no problem working with a photographer and you're cool with them. If you want something changed, it doesn't hurt to say, hey, can you put in there that, I could use the images for this? Is it okay? And if you're not okay with it, then you walk away from each other and maybe you'll do business later on other projects. When it comes to the releases or licenses and things like that, people tend to like step back. Whoa, what's that? What do you mean I got to sign? I tell people, I say, no, this is to protect me and to give you limited rights. So they understand, I'll be able to use it if I need to, like, promote myself and things like that. But at the same time, you're getting the rights to use the images for your social media and all the other stuff that's written on there. You know what I'm saying? But ignorance is not bliss. You can't say, well, I didn't know that. I don't know the laws. Doesn't matter. When you go into court, you don't know law, doesn't mean nothing.
This is why I find it so important. It's one thing when you start off in the business, but I feel like if you consider yourself seasoned and you consider yourself somebody of importance, you should have a team of people that should be able to support your brand that knows these things. Because if you don't know it, then hire the people to teach you these things. Get you a team of people that says, listen, read this contract because I don't know what that mess is. And I mean, honestly, people get caught up in the excitement of, oh, I'm taking pictures with Jose, or I'm taking pictures with John, and I know I'm gonna look good and sexy, but they don't think about the logistics of it. They just want to take the pictures. They just want to be seen. And then when it don't go in their favor, then it's a problem. Jose did me wrong. No.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I had to learn, right? When I started doing the magazine, there's a lot of things that I had to learn. Thank God, not necessarily the hard way. I had to learn as I grew. Things that I didn't think that I needed to know in the beginning. Not that I didn't think I needed to know, but I didn't know that I needed to know. You know what I mean? So, in photography was one of those things that, I had to take a step back and I had to really learn what it was about. Thankfully, I have people on my team in, different genres of the fashion industry who I can learn from, like, makeup. I had to learn, not necessarily how to apply makeup, but I had to learn a lot about the background of makeup, photography, modeling. You know, there's a lot of things that I had to learn, and it's difficult. But I think that, you know, when people get into this industry, I think that it's sad that there's not really enough. There's maybe one or two from what I can remember, like university or an academy of some sort where people can go and take these classes and learn the different levels of the profession that they're getting into. And I think that photography is one of the things that, you know, people have to learn, like, you know, graphic design artists. They don't necessarily have to do photo shoots, but they learn the background of photography as well. And I only know this because my son went to college for graphic design. But so
Right, and they mix photography in with that.
Right. And so with this industry, it is very difficult to just know everything, you know? And so, you know, for anybody who is listening now, if you don't know these things, maybe it's time to, you know, hit the pause button and learn them. Because, you know, a lot of us really do, and I say a lot of us, because, you know, some photographers has come at me like, you know, why use my image, right? And in the beginning, I was taking submissions from models, not necessarily going through the process of having to get the release forms from the photographers, but that's something I had to learn too. Hit the pause button on that. We're not accepting any submissions without the signed agreement. And, you know, that's something that we had to learn. Now,
you have to protect yourself.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah.
But you know what, Tawana, it's if the client, model, consumer, whoever, has a conversation with the photographer that they're hiring to get an understanding of things, you know, of how things work. I've explained it numerous times. Even at our fashion show, I've had talked to the models about all of this, and you still have some that turn around and
the same shit
and damage the photo, add filters to it, add right on the photo, do whatever. And I'm like, yo, we just talked about this. And they'll still turn around and do it. So, you know, I'm big on explaining things to my client because I want them to get a clear understanding of what I expect from them and what they should expect from me as a photographer. You know what I'm saying?
John, we
so
know
it doesn't take, if you want to. Oh, you see, I go on a rant at times. Like, I get so fed up with some of the stuff, man. It's just like, oh my God. Like, but
so
it's nothing like it. Right. If you wanted to learn like, okay, I want to take pictures, but I need you to explain some things to me. And then start. I always say the model or the consumer should always ask questions. Always. Right.
But some don't know what questions to ask. And I think even photographers, even up and coming photographers need that training too. Know how to protect your work. And I think it's good that we have individuals like this who are willing to share, because a lot of photographers don't know. They don't really know. They don't know nothing about how to protect their art. And oftentimes it gets stolen and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
You know?
So one of the comments, there's two, from the chat room is Miss Nikki. She says she explains to her girls about, you know, photo shoots and the right set images. And she has gotten a lot more of her information from John. I think we all get a taste of information from John, because John be going online and he just be going. He just be feeding our brain a lot of information. That's the politically correct way of saying that, right?
Yeah.
Another thing she said is you have to go into a shoot knowing why and who you are shooting with and what rights you have. Is an important part of building your portfolio. Now, I want to backtrack for a second, because Jose, you were talking earlier about, going into Staples or something like that, and getting your photos printed out. I'm gonna share with you an experience that I had, right? Now, as a magazine owner, right? So when I book with, for photographers, right? Not all photographers, but when I book with a photographer, right? It's a little bit different for me rather than just being a model. So I go into, I think it was Walgreens, and I needed to get some images printed out, right? So the guy is like, well, you have to have a photo release form, right? So, I have my own photo release forms. So I asked him, I said, do you have one or whatever, right? So he was like, are you a photographer? I was like, no, I'm not. And he was like, well, you have to have the photographer sign the release. And I was like, well, I own a magazine, the images are mine because, Phil did the images. So the images were mine. And he was like, well, then you have to bring a copy of your your magazine in it. And it has to have a picture of you on the page that says, from the editor.
Mhm.
And I was like, really? Good thing I did have it, because I think we were going to a show or something like that. So I had a magazine in my bag and I had to show him. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, then you can print it now. Thank you. But yeah, it's a lot when you go into these stores without the photo release forms, and they're just not going to do it. No.
Yeah, because they're protecting themselves, because if you
Right.
turn around and, well, they just make money printing my image. So you have to look at
So
it like that. They just
in
make
that
money
case,
printing my image. So
so
they have to get that release so they're not held liable. You know what I'm saying?
that's interesting. So in that case, if they did print it, the photographer can come after me and them.
Yeah.
Yep.
God damn. All right, let me stop cursing. So so let's talk about, because I know before we hit the we went live, we were talking kind of back behind the scenes, and we were talking about makeup artists and hairstylists, right? So if the photographer owns the work because they click the button, what about everybody else who was a part of that shoot? What about the makeup artist? Because that's their work, right? What about the hairstylists? What rights do they have to any images?
Well, that all goes back to, and I'm sorry if y'all can't see me. I'm actually like driving out running errands.
Oh, we can see you driving.
So
With
that
no
goes back.
headset on.
That goes back to again the photographer, because the copyright law states that any person that takes a picture with their device owns that image. So that's how it gets into the copyright law. No matter if it's a cell phone, a camera, whatever, you take a shot of that image, you take an image with your device, you own it. So now it's up to that photographer or that model to, once she purchases her images, gets her images, she can share them with the makeup artist and the stylist and everything like that. That was all part of the shoot. I've posted images and tagged the makeup artist. I've tagged the designer. I've tagged the model in them so they can see them. And it all depends again on that photographer. You get them real a-hole types that don't want to do anything. Yeah. But you also get the ones that don't mind the sharing of the images, and letting the makeup artist download it off of social media or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, when I do productions, if a designer or whatever, they come to me and they want me to put together a shoot, most of the time I'm the one hiring the hairstylist and the makeup artist. So once they're part of my team, and they're gonna get finished images. You know what I'm saying? They might not get a whole link with every little nook and cranny shot, but the best ones and the ones that are gonna be used and stuff, they get a fresh, nice copy, and I make sure they get it. Now if I'm being hired by, say, a bigger company, and they just bringing me on the shoot, and I'm dealing with the company. I don't know the makeup artist. I don't know the hairstylist. The images they get a lot of times is probably gonna be, like John said, from social media or from a PR with the person contacting the actual company, the designer. You know what I'm saying? Because then they're gonna have probably the license at that point for that image. So that's why, like, when I've done certain shoots in the past, the models never reach out to me for an image because most of the time they just know they're not privy to it. Even the model themselves, like, they don't even get an image. They just go out and get the magazine or whatever, and that's what they have. You know, so it all depends again, who the middleman is, who the client is, whether it's a personal or commercial shoot, you know, or editorial. But most of my magazine stuff, like, if I bring in the makeup people or I know them, obviously they're gonna get stuff because we have a rapport, you know. But again, if I'm being hired by an outside source and they're bringing in different teams from everywhere, then it's not my responsibility as a photographer to be like, oh yeah, what's your email? I'm gonna send you image. Because at that point now I'm just creating more work and more stuff to reach out to people I don't know and tell them, oh, here's images and stuff. So I really don't do it like that when it comes to those type of productions.
So with the hairstylist and the
Oh,
photographer, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nathaniel, you had something?
No, I want to piggyback on something because you said something about rapport, and that struck with me because I think that was something that I think I thrived on because I had rapport with certain photographers. So it was kind of like I knew, like, hey, while I'm doing hair, whether it be for a wedding or shoot, can you get certain images for me that I need for the portfolio? This might be something on the side because we have that understanding. But I have worked weddings with photographers who have submitted the photos in top magazines, The Knot, Munalucci, won't even tag me as the hairstylist. And I'm like, hey, I did the hair, you know, do we not get a tag? And it's like, where do you go with that situation when, as the hairstylist, you know, we've done the work, the makeup artist has done the work. Maybe the makeup artist might get tagged and the hairstylist might, but I feel like all who is involved in that wedding, if you're going to submit that photo, everybody should be tagged, in my opinion, unless they ask not to be. But I don't know, is that a contractual thing? Is that something?
Yeah, I mean, what was the one that you said, like The Knot, for example? What was it was an actual wedding?
So it was an actual wedding. So and honestly, it was kind of like, so there were two hairstylists. I was hired to do mainly the bridesmaids, but however, this particular hairstylist was like, I'm running behind. Can you do her for me? Or can you start her for me? And so therefore the photographer was taking pictures. And as he was taking pictures of me prepping her and getting her going, when it came time for the submissions, those pictures was outed out because technically, I guess maybe I wasn't listed as the bride's hairstylist, but just the bridesmaids. So what they did, they just tagged that one hairstylist for everybody for the whole wedding party, which that wasn't true. We were contracted to do the wedding party. He was basically contracted to do the bride. However, he didn't have the time. I did majority of the work, but there was no, I wasn't tagged, and it was a big issue for me. And I mean, I didn't know how to fight it. It was too late. It was already printed. They couldn't retract it. So
yeah, you see, that's where that gray zone with creatives are, you know, meaning the hairstylists and makeup artists and body paint artists. It all depends on what's kind of agreed to beforehand. If you're contracted by, say, an agency or something like that, you know, if there's no like kind of wording beforehand, like, hey, this is who's gonna get it. Like if it was an editorial, it's different. But I guess because this was a wedding, you know, and it's something that's just submitted off the cuff, like, hey, we got these pictures from this awesome wedding. Do you want to buy publishing? Do you know the photographer? Was there a long-term working relationship?
I had just met him. I mean, real cool guy, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's very popular in Atlanta and very well known. And he had more of a relationship with the other hairstylists than with me, because he had worked with them several times. So, you know, I get it. And I mean, I've worked weddings. I've worked celebrity weddings as an extra where we actually had to sign NDAs. You're not to take pictures. There will be no pictures that will be posted on the internet. And I understood that. I know what an NDA is. I've had to sign several of them for many events. You know, we can't even talk about that we even did the wedding. That's how secretive it was. Like all parties that was there, no, you got your check. Hey, I'm good. Like I'm okay with stuff like that. You know, if I'm understanding where my check speaks louder than the NDA, I'm good.
Yeah, of course.
So can I ask you a question, Nathaniel? So who actually submitted the images?
I think the photographer actually submitted the images, because actually the photographer and the hairstylist, which is so funny, are members with this particular magazine. So they get to post their images, you know, because that's the understanding that they have. You are a member of this particular magazine. When you do shoots, you get a discount for promoting your work in the magazine. They may do a big magazine quarterly, maybe every 4 months. They may do a winter and a summer, spring one. And this magazine is so huge that, you know, people are actually getting this magazine to get inspiration for their weddings. So it's huge advertisement. So it's like, okay. So when I posted the picture, there was an issue when I tagged myself. Oh, are you stealing my work? This is not your work, blah, 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 blah. The photographer was like, you know, I don't really want to get into it. You know, I'm going to get out of that. And he just kind of, you know, walked away from the situation, but he knew that I had worked on the wedding. He just, I guess the relationship with the other hairstylist was so big that he was like, I don't want to burn a bridge with them. You know, I know the deal, but I don't know the deal, you know, type thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that, at that point, it's better, you know, take the image, maybe put it in your book or your website for your portfolio, you know, at that point, because then it gets into a legal battle.
The bride had no issues, though. The bride, I knew the bride. Me and the bride went to college together. She was just so blown away with the whole situation.
Well, if the photographer backed away and it's the hairstylist, then the hairstylist is null and void as far as being any kind of conversation. That doesn't matter. If you put your hands on her hair and you put in work.
And that's what I was told. You know, anytime your hands touch anything, anytime you're putting in work, you are a part of that project. Now, that's another thing and that may be a whole nother live, you know, when who gets named when, I guess it depends on who's over the project. You know, if I bring you in as an extra, you know, this is technically my project. You know, if I tag you, it's up to me to tag you. I guess that's something that we just have to have an understanding.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when it comes to certain projects, if you don't know who you're working with, you just met them, don't expect to get tagged.
Right.
You're probably not. Like a lot of the hairstylists I work, like I did a couple of shoots, and I know with the higher end magazines, like you come in, you do the hair, makeup, bye, goodbye. They don't tag you in nothing. And sometimes they don't even, you know, they just get the paycheck and they go, and that's it.
Now, I will say that there are third parties that will hire talent. Like I can get a call right now from a company that may say, hey, we're looking for a hairstylist to do a L'Oreal photo shoot. Technically, I work for that other company. I was hired as a third party, as a contractor. They don't have to tag me. They can just tag the company that helped them.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's still that fine line of, okay, if you want to be documented, then you need to put that in a contract with those third party that says, hey, anything that I touch, I want to be tagged in.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in an agency and you're, you know, top tier in the agency where you know, you're highly respected, then that can be put into your contract where if there is some kind of publication or whatever, they have to put it. I mean, but that's something you have to talk with them and kind of say, hey, you know, I want to be kind of given credit for this when it's published. You know, that's something.
I think a lot of it, to me, a lot of it is just common courtesy. I mean, you know, some people do it, some people don't. I mean, I think with me, it's just common courtesy to tag all that or mention all that was involved, whether it was, you know, Nathaniel Jaye that did the hair and makeup, me as a photographer, so-and-so as the designer. I mean, I think that's just common courtesy to do that. You know, in my book, and we all operate differently. So it can be, you know, some people look at things totally different. And just like the whole story, Nathaniel, that you were saying, I think it was because that photographer and that hairstylist were buddy-buddy.
Yeah.
where no, you didn't get no recognition in those images when you were part of it.
But there's also been times where I've actually reached out to another third party. So I've done another wedding. This particular wedding made it to TMZ. It was either Media Takeout, one of them two. One of those outlets it made it to. I thought it was amazing that they tagged the photographer, which is fine, but they did not tag anybody else that was a part of the wedding. So I reached out to, I think, Media Takeout. I think it was Media Takeout. It might have been TMZ. I'm not quite sure. So they tried to hit me over the head with, oh, okay, well, if you want to be tagged, you got to pay us thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Thousands of dollars to be tagged.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was like, would you tag the photographer? Was she the one submitted it? Did she got a friend that works there? Because I don't understand. I mean, and they use not only a video, but they use images as well. So that would, I mean, even the wedding planner was not even tagged. I even reached out, and he even reached out and tried to get tagged. He was like, what? You want me to pay you what? Just to put my name down there? They were like, do you realize how many people follow us? We're putting you on. So you have to pay us for the advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question to the photographers. Is it, you guys have contracts, is it unreasonable for a makeup artist, well, any other talent that's a part of the photo shoot, the makeup artist, the hairstylist, the stylist, whoever, is it unreasonable for them to say, hey, you know, I'm part of this project as well? Can they draw up their own contract to say, you know, if you're using the images, just like y'all do with you know, the people y'all shoot, is it unreasonable for, you know, a makeup artist and a hairstylist to say, you know, this is my contract. If you're using it for this, and this, I want credit, or whatever the case may be. Or if you're using it for a campaign where you're getting paid from, you know, I want to cut. Is that unreasonable?
I mean, that doesn't happen in the industry, except if you're a makeup artist or hairstylist and you contracting a photographer for your own shoot, whether it's business, portfolio, then you can say, hey, I want to be able to use this for whatever I need to do for my business. And again, that goes same thing with the licensing. If you're going to make money, say you sell pieces and you're going to actually advertise, sell pieces, you got to work up a contract for that. All that has to be done before. But if it's like an editorial and stuff like that, it's like John said, it's a common courtesy. It's, you know, at that point, you're going to know that's the photographer you're going to work with again, if they treat you like an a-hole by just putting up the picture on social media and kind of ignoring everybody. Then, you know, at that point, you're never going to probably work with that person because they're not, you know, genuine. Like I like to tag, like once something comes out, I tag everybody. I mean, 6 months down the line, that same image, if I repost it, I might not tag anybody because at that point now I'm just promoting myself and kind of putting my business out there. But in the beginning, I always like to tag everybody once it's popping off and new covers out or whatever, new editorial. But again, it all depends on who I'm working with, what kind of project, and what we're doing.
Tag me, especially if I'm doing it for free. Can you listen?
No, that's the story.
Listen, I'm just keeping it real because I have done shoots for free, and mind you, I don't have issues with doing stuff for free because you know, it's a collaboration. We got an understanding. You a photographer, you a creative, I'm a creative. We gonna do this thing together because we both trying to blow up. But my thing is, I've worked for people and didn't get paid, and it's like you can't even tag me on the art. Come on now.
Yeah.
Like, at least tag me. Oh, I forgot. I thought I tagged everybody. No, you tagged no one.
Yeah, it's incredible the different layers there are to you know, this whole photography thing, and depending on, you know, what genre of what area of the profession, the industry you work in. Now, Jose, you brought up something about pieces, and that was another question that we got, which I'm gonna touch on. But I want to read this comment because you have to tell me if this is true or false. Okay, this was the comment from Miss Nikki. She said, if the makeup artist books the shoot, is she or he then considered the talent and has the option of shared rights of their images?
Well, that has to be, again, done before the shoot even takes place. That's a conversation for when you sit down and you talk about what you want, when you want, and how you want it. That has to be on the table. Because at that point, the photographer says, no, I'm not giving you any rights. And then you might say, okay, you know what? I don't want to do the shoot with you. And you find somebody else. You know, so that's the conversation that needs to take place before you even go in the studio and shoot.
Oh, there's a lot of, and let me tell, I feel like it's like a lot of conversations they need to be had before you start booking photo shoots. So, you know, just to be
Let me give you one example, because I wrote down a note when I was doing my research.
uh-huh.
And because I get this, it happens from time to time where a model comes to a shoot, they shoot in something, you know, they sign the release, you know, so we have the model release on, but then they go out and they give the image to the boutique. And the boutique then posts, oh, check out my girl, go to this site, you know, you get blah, 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 you know, discount, mention her name. You know, at that point, you know, and I reach out to the model and say, you know, that's commercial. You just gave away my image to somebody and let them use it without authority. You know, so there's a lot, but the thing is, there's a lot of boutiques that and people that know this, so they leave it up to the models to get shots. And one of the big ones is Fashion Nova.
Oh,
you know,
Mm-hmm.
everything
I had an issue with them a couple of years ago and I had to contact with their PR. I think I talked about it in the last show, but what it is, you know, they send me this explanation, and what it is, they send the clothes out to the girls, and they'll be like, you know, hey, you got to take an image in this, you got to post it by a certain time, whatever, you know, all that crap. But the thing is, they don't tell, they leave it up to the women to figure it out on their own. So a lot of women don't know, like if you hire a photographer to shoot, you just can't turn around and hand it to Fashion Nova and say, here you go. And that's what a lot of them do, especially with, you know, boutiques. So I try to educate boutique owners, like especially when I go on tour and like a boutique or a business wants to sponsor me, I educate them on the licensing and terms, so they understand how the business works. And a lot of them love it when I educate them, because then they know going forward when dealing with new people how to approach it, the questions to ask, and things of that nature. But there's a lot of sneaky practice with the image usage. You know, I shot in this, and I tell them no, and that's why I ask on tour, like if you're shooting for a boutique or a friend designer and they're gonna use the images for business, have them reach out to me. They cannot do businesses with my image with you because you don't own it.
Exactly.
So that brings me to and there was another question about contracts I'm gonna get to in a second. That brings me to the next question that was submitted by I believe she was a designer or boutique, one of the two. You know, do they fall under, and I know we talked about this briefly earlier, do they fall under commercial, and exactly how do their photo shoots work when they want to use the images, just like for the example you just gave. I have a model, and she, she's going to do a photo shoot with Jose, and I'm gonna put these on my website, and I'm gonna sell these pieces, and the model's going to get a percentage for using a code. Where does that fall within the photography? Like, is that commercial? Is that leasing?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that still falls on the commercial. But again, they're like, there's a lot of boutiques that always acquire, they want to hire me. And I kind of give them the sliding scale, like I said before. So yeah, you could use, those images for your website, but that's the conversation you have before you shoot. Like, oh, wait a minute, can I use it? And sometimes the models that do wear the boutique stuff on shoots, the designer will hit me later on and say, hey, can I use an image? How much? And sometimes, I'm a generous guy. Sometimes I'll be like, just give me $50 and you could use it for a month, and you're good. So they plaster it and they blow it up and they post it everywhere. You know what I'm saying? They make their coin, so it all depends on the conversation before or sometimes even after. I tell the designers, like, you could use it. I'll give you, 6 months. You pay this amount and you have unlimited use and you don't have to worry. And they get a copy of the agreement, so there is no confusion.
So a photographer, right? And that, because I know there's different what do you call it? There's different fields of photography, right? So if I'm a fashion photographer, right? And I don't know anything about commercial photography, you know, am I doing, you know, the photography industry an injustice if I go and I start booking with booking photo shoots for a designer for their stuff? And I don't really know, you know, what leasing is about. I don't know. But then you have all these designers and these boutique owners who have booked with these photographers who don't really know anything to explain to them. Now they come into Jose and they're like, well, I booked like 10 shoots already with other photographers. Nobody told me I had to, you know, get a lease or something for 6 months. So, you know, what exactly is that about? I just feel like photographers, there should be standard contracts. And this is one of the questions that was in the chat room. Is there some place that people can go to get standard contracts? And if you're going to shy away from that that contract because you do business a little bit differently, you know, I think that you know, it's something that should be explained.
The thing is, again, going back to the music, it's the worth, the artist's worth. If somebody's coming to me and they say, hey, I want to shoot my clothing line and I want to have all the image rights to it, I'll be like, okay, this is how much it is. Now, if the person says, okay, I can afford that, no problem, then we're working. At that point, I don't care about the rights because I'm getting the coin. You know, I'm getting compensated enough to forego all those rights. But if I know if I got a designer, they don't have the money, again, the sliding scale, I'm like, well, I could work with your budget and I'll give you this time frame to be able to make money with the images. You know, because I think that it's just being clear with what a person wants. That's why when people come to me and they have a business and they don't know, I explain to them so they can know. And I give them time to do their own research and then come back to me and then we could agree on the time frame or how much, you know, images they're going to use, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about finding out, learning, doing your there's no need to rush into a shoot, you know, without knowing. Once you find out, oh, damn, I got to buy a license, and then you just jump right in. If you need time to back up, think about it, and kind of put your budget together to make sure that you could get a shoot done and have the licensing, it's better to do it properly than to run into it and run into legal problems later.
With the magazine, I know, go ahead, Nathaniel.
I want to say that somebody in the chat I think somebody had asked earlier about contracts and where could they get contracts, and somebody just posted, hey, I use Google for my contracts. You can download them as a PDF and make your own adjustments. So, I mean, there's things right there that you can, you know, get for free. I mean, there are some contracts you might have to pay a fee for, but just to kind of get a general idea of what, like, you know, what we getting into, because at least you'll have something, you know what I'm saying, versus not having.
You can do that, Nathaniel, and just piece it together for what you're doing. Basically, when I started out with photography, that's what I did. I took my contracts and, you know, downloaded different photography contracts and pieced them together, but I made sure I added everything in that covered myself and my client.
Yeah, you also have to be careful with contracts and then when you're doing the pieces, because like everything is legally binding and wording, you know, and if you leave loopholes and gaps in your contracts, you know, you can screw yourself over.
I mean, wording is so important. I mean, it's just crazy how something I had created my own contract and then I had a lawyer look over it and she was like, I get what you're saying, but by adding this one word changes the whole situation around.
Exactly.
That is so crazy how, I mean, even with my contract is consistently changing. Every time I do something, I add another line, I add another paragraph, because you get in these situations, it's like, man, that could have something.
You live and learn. That's why contracts and laws are always changing. That's why even intellectual fights, you know, always change in court, and sometimes they switch the way they go as far as verdicts, because it depends on how you explain things and how you come forward with your fight, you know, when it comes to images or creative work or anything like that.
And like you said, that one word could change a whole paragraph, change a whole meaning to your contract. When I really got into it, and I'm sorry I cut the video off, but you know, I got to pay attention to what's in front of me. But when I joined Professional Photographers of America, they actually gave you a template for a photography contract for everything you want to do, from whether it's, you know, photo shoots to headshots to whatever it is. They laid out a template from their lawyers and gave it to us as members. And we download it, and then you could just plug your business name into it. And that's legally binding. But again, that one word, and like I was told to change the word from deposit to retainer. You know what I mean? Say you need to make a $50 retainer fee. Because first I was like, you know, you got to make a $50 deposit to secure your date and time. And I was told to change that to retainer.
Right.
And that one word changed everything.
So John, for people that don't know the difference between the two, can you explain it?
Between the difference between the deposit and a retainer?
Yeah.
Okay. So how it was explained to me was the retainers, you're actually holding me. You're actually, that money is just like basically for say like a lawyer. You pay a lawyer for a retainer fee. So that's basically what you're doing with the photographer. You're retaining that photographer for that date and that time. Just like if you was doing a lawyer, retaining a lawyer for that court date and that court time to be there. You know what I mean? A deposit is just basically saying, okay, I'm giving you this just to hold a date. You know what I mean? Just to secure, I want that date of August 21st, and I'm just giving you a deposit.
Right.
You know,
but also
legally changing that to say retainer, meaning you're retaining me on that date and that scheduled time that we have on our contract.
Yeah. And it also means too that as he stated that as a retainer, this is saying this is what we're doing. This is going towards your balance. But a deposit also could mean that this is just a deposit and I'm going to return it back to you once the services are completed. So it's
exactly.
Like if you don't have any more detail after what the deposit means, because just like an apartment, we put a deposit down, but when we move out, we get the money back. You don't put a retainer on an apartment. You put a deposit down. But they also put in small print that this is a non-refundable or refundable deposit. That's why they have to break all that down. But I like to change mine to retainer as well. I mean, it's just little things. People don't ask that kind of stuff, but it's just we know that. So we got to back ourselves.
So is one refundable and one not?
You know,
well, I state mine as a non-refundable, meaning you make that retainer fee of $50 or $75. I've had clients that paid the full amount. And I tell them, you know, if you pay the full amount, okay, it's refundable minus this amount.
Right.
Because now you done paid the full amount for that, to retain me for that day. And if you cancel or whatever may happen, I could have booked somebody else for that day. So you just basically made me lose money. So I'm minusing X amount of dollars from what you paid me as my retainer. So if I had a $50 retainer and you went ahead and paid the full amount, I'm minusing that $50, but you'll get the rest back.
And I'm the type of person, listen, I don't want to be responsible for your full amount of money. Go on and put your retainer down just in case we have to make some changes. And this whole pandemic has, thank God for the contract. Thank God for the contract, because the pandemic has saved my ass. Trust me, because I have had so many weddings cancel postpone, or they just decided that they weren't equally yoked and they weren't getting married at all now.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, it's like, so what you gonna do? They've emailed me, well, we decided, so what about the deposit? Well, my contract simply states that if you decide that you no longer want my services, the deposit is non-refundable. If I have to cancel my services, if I can't fulfill my end of the deal, then I will return that money to you. However, I mean, I can be kind enough and be like, I understand it's a pandemic, but I'm willing to work with the brides and say, hey, if you want to wait till next year, we can work it out. I'm willing to work with you. Well, no, we don't know if we're going to do it next year now.
Jose, you were going to say something?
No. I think I said it. It was just a quick comment. But when it comes to what he's talking about, like images and deposits and stuff like that, with the pandemic, obviously some shoots had to be canceled. Yeah. And some clients, they're like, no, just keep the money and we'll shoot once it's ready, the COVID, it kind of dies down, or we'll, shoot down the line. And I have no problem with that. Again, it boils down to the photographer and who they are as a person. If they got a kind heart and they got an understanding of reality,
Kind heart.
Yeah, because this wasn't our fault. The pandemic wasn't our fault. I've had clients that paid me for services and the pandemic hit, and it was like, well, what do we do? I said, well, you can use it I can credit it. So therefore you can use it after all this clears up, you have a credit, and when you're ready, you can come shoot. I've done that with some clients. Some clients I've actually, refunded their money minus my retainer fee. If it was $50, I gave them everything else. But it was an understanding, say, hey, I'm going to give you your money back, but it's going to be minus what my retainer fee was.
Yeah.
Oh, trust me, I had to add pandemic into the contract too.
I think everybody added their part into the contract.
So now everybody contract states in case of a pandemic,
We all did that.
Right. So again, we live and we learn. So now the pandemic is, so now everybody knows to add that in their contract to say, in case of a pandemic or a nationwide shutdown, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But to be clear, I'm willing to work with anybody that works with me. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, we just stealing their money, we just taking their money. I mean, those people who didn't get their money back, those people decided that they just weren't going to have a wedding at all. I mean,
right.
It's a difference if you're postponing, but you're canceling it because you don't want to be together no more. I mean,
right.
What am I going to do? We're all struggling in the pandemic. As creators, we losing money too. So what do I look like if I had all that money I got to give back that was as a deposit because you decided not to have a wedding? Where does that leave me? I mean, most of them, a lot of these venues were giving their money back. So they put $4,000, $5,000 down on the venue, and a lot of those venues went under too. I mean, we've had so many venues that have closed down permanently due to the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And some people pay money back.
What? So a question from the chat was, is pandemic part of force majeure? I guess that's a terminology inside of the contract.
Say that again.
Is pandemic part of force majeure? I'm assuming that force majeure is terminology in contract.
I mean, I put down health, accident, natural disaster, and pandemic. I mean,
natural disaster, yeah, natural disaster, pandemic.
Oh, so force majeure is a common clause in contracts that essentially frees both parties from liability or obligation when an extraordinary event or circumstance beyond the control of the parties. I gotta click a button to finish reading.
Yeah, basically the pandemic clause.
Oh, it's described by the legal term act of God.
Yeah.
Right. So basically that will go under natural disaster.
I don't think that was an act of God, though.
See, and that's the thing. That terminology is crazy because I think a lot of people assume when they say act of God, it's usually like, weather or something like that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. What if you're an atheist? At that point, act of God doesn't pertain to you.
You know what? That's a valid point.
Right.
Act of who?
So now I guess we got to add something for the atheist. Whether you're an atheist, this applies to you. I mean, it's crazy how it's like you got to cover all your bases.
Yeah.
And it becomes annoying. It sounds like you're nitpicking, but man, people will sue you for anything.
Yeah.
Terminology is crazy, and I think that's that's a problem when it comes to a lot of business deals. A lot of people leave. They always leave it up to interpretation. If I book with you and I say, oh, you can use your images for social media, but you tell me that what I can't use my images for, you know what I mean? Then I'm like, okay, social media. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, and this, and this, and this, and this, because you said yes to that, but you didn't say no to anything else. And it is so strange when it comes to photography, which is a frustrating part to me. Now, as a magazine owner, I wanted to make this point, right? So, like you, Jose, we recognize people coming up in the game, you know what I mean? And so when we book photo shoots with these individuals who may not have money to pay for a photo shoot, and we get it. So sometimes what we do is we'll book the shoot. Now, if your story is interesting enough, let me just say that, because we don't do this with everybody. If your story is interesting enough, and it'll be a great addition to the magazine, we'll do the photo shoot free of charge, right? And in the contract, it states that the photo shoots belong to the magazine, and you won't get copies of the images, right? This is explained to people. Magazine come out. They done took screenshots and just put it all over social media. Like, what part of you can't have the images don't you understand? Or they'll reach out and they say, oh, can I have a copy of said images? What you raising your hand for?
Because I mean, that's me. I mean, like, can I get that copy? Listen, now that I know, I won't be screenshotting no more. But I mean, I ain't gonna say I ain't screenshotting.
But that's the conundrum with a magazine, because you're a publication, public. It's not a a catalog. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're in there just. The magazine doesn't exist to sell products that make money. The magazine is to inform viewers of, topics, news, fashion, things like that. So that's where that gets tricky. And that's why when people do that, like when I was doing iDare, people would just post up everything. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Is at that point you can't stop because it's a publication. So it all depends on the wording. Now, if I know some magazines say, you get maybe tear sheets or something like that.
Correct.
And you make that clear, but when I told people, I'll be like, I say, please do me a favor. You can post a tear sheet. Just try to do at least one a week, not the whole thing in one day, in one shot, especially if you're a magazine that's charging people, that kind of defeats the purpose, and people kind of ruin and burn their own bridges when they do that, when they put out 20 images and, they don't think the magazine knows that they're putting it out. They see them, especially if you tag in the magazine. Now, guess what? You might not be considered. You might not be considered for a future publication or a future editorial or whatever because you did that.
So here's the thing, because that's another thing that I put in writing. Whenever I send it to people, tell people, please do not post all your tear sheets online. I'm okay with a page, a teaser. I'm okay with that. But to post your whole feature up online, don't nobody want to buy the magazine now because they can read the shit for free now.
Yeah.
Right.
So here's my question, right? So because I own those images, right? Because I own that magazine, can I then turn around and sue? So, since everybody's suing everybody, I'm just trying to see where I fall within the suing game. Like, can I sue?
Probably not. But again, that falls into, well, guess what? Now you just burn that bridge, you know, and I don't think people out there trying to burn bridges on purpose. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's important, you as an editor in chief, to reach out in an email and say, hey, I'm highly disappointed in you doing that. Can you please take down at least 2 of the 5, reduce the number of postings to a later date. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. A lot of people are afraid. I'm pretty sure you're not afraid, but a lot of people are afraid of confronting people in email. And I think email is a good form because you're making a legal and time-stamped conversation. So they can't turn around and say, oh, this person's abusing me. You know, they're telling me I can't post and they're cursing me out or making lies. You know, that's, again, anything you do, contract, email, somewhere where it could be recorded, not Messenger, because somebody could just delete
that shit.
you know, delete the message, or Instagram, they can just remove it, you know, but, you know, keep it. I say email and contracts is the way to go. And
I do it all the time.
But it's the model or the designer, whoever, you know, it's just up to the person. If, obviously, if they're doing that, they're posting 20 images from the editorial, and they're basically undercutting you as a magazine at that point. You know, they're saying, screw you. Like what I like to do is, you know, even though it's my images, and I might even have just submitted to the magazine for fun because I like getting my stuff out there and people to see it, I'm still not going to undercut the magazine. Right. I might put a big smiley face on part of the paragraph. No, you want to go read it. You want to read or see more, go to the link, check out the link. You know what I'm saying?
I think that a lot of people feel like, and this is the terminology that a lot of people use. A lot of people feel like you guys keep their images hostage. That's the terminology that I've heard people use a lot. You keep them hostage, like, and so the question is like, well, what are you gonna do with them? If I can't have them, what are you doing with them?
But you know, and the funny thing is, like, our people, like in this industry, mostly people of color, you know, Black, Latino, we're kind of used to doing business a certain way. Yeah. You know, some photographers that I know, they shoot, you pay for a sitting session, right? Because I do that with my art. Like, my art is different. Like, when somebody books me for the art session, you're paying just for the sitting session. You're not paying for anything else. You're just paying to shoot. At that point, after that, a lot of photographers, in especially in higher tier, like, now you get sent maybe 50 images from that shoot. Say we shot 200, 300 images. Now you may be getting 50 or 25 images to look at. And at that point, now you still got to pay for those images. You understand what I'm saying? So it's about learning what type of photographer you're dealing with, their delivery system, what they charge, what's not charged, and stuff like that. You know, there's some photographers that give you full invoices of what their whole shoot entails and why they're charging you that.
That is interesting because when you book, and this might sound cheesy, but when you book like a photo shoot at like JCPenney's or Sears or something like that, that's what they do. They when you pay the, I guess whatever the $19.99 is, that's the sitting fee, right? Mm-hmm. And then when they send you back what do you call those, the proofs, then you got to pick which ones you want and then pay extra. Man, the first time I did that, I was
$500 later. How we go from $19.99 to $500?
The first time I did that, I was like, you rip-off.
Way with me.
But they don't tell you that until after you done did your photo shoot.
But
and they'll be like, isn't this nice? Don't you like? This is nice. Ooh.
Right.
Yeah, and then a lot of times you have to pay for just a digital too. People understand that. Like with my art, you pay the sitting. Say we're doing a black light. You want to do a black light nude art shoot because you want a picture for your wall. I shoot you, right? You do the sitting fee. It could be anywhere from $500 to $2,500 for the shoot, depending on props and things like that. We're not even talking about a digital image because, first of all, I don't give digital images out unless it's stamped, hard stamped. But the primary person that the client is doing the art shoot is because they want that piece on the wall. You know, so they have to pay now for the piece. They're not getting digitals. They're not getting none of that. They'll get a viewing thing where they could view and sit down, you know, for a week or two and figure out which image that is going to go on their wall. But that's how I do it. Some photographers do that for regular, just a headshot. You'd be like, okay, I like this image, and they'll be like, all right, that's 500 or 600 or 1,000, and not even edited, you know.
But that's what basically happened to me for my branding shoot. When I first did my first branding shoot, which I need to do another one, but it was like, okay, this is the fee, but you only get 3 images. I had to pick 3 images, that like 3 favorite images. Any image after that was like $75 extra.
Mm-hmm.
And if I went to another location, that was another fee. So if we at one location, that was one fee, but it's like different locations, like the price went up. But the promotion was for this, but of course you don't know all this other stuff until you see all these amazing pictures. And you're like, I want them all. I want this one. She was like, okay, well, this is gonna be like $750. What? Okay, well, let me scale back. I don't really like that picture anymore. You know, but that's the stuff that you got to be prepared for. But if the photographer is bomb and you know they're gonna do good work, you just have to prepare yourself for it. Just go on and set your little coins aside and do what you got.
That's the investment. That's why I tell people, I'm like, don't rush out. Just save. You know, if you're interested in a particular photographer, you save up for that shoot and you get proper work. Like when I go on tour, my whole structure for the tour is different. So when I send out images, I actually go through them and I don't send people 10 images, you know, or something like that. I send them most of them so they could sit down, because sometimes even the quirky ones, they might be like, you know what, I like that quirky one, even though I was acting silly, I might like that too. Because, you know, I might not like it for my presentation, say on my site or anything, but they might like it just because they like it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I present some of those images, you know, that I might not like, but they might like it.
But that at least that tells me how professional you are, because there are some photographers who won't take a lot of pictures. And I noticed that when I've been on sets, I'm like, didn't you take like 100 pictures of that one? She was like, listen, you never know, that one picture will look so different from the next picture. I can take 100 pictures of the same pose, but they all gonna look different to the photographer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I just wish that this was just like so standard, so you know what to expect when you book with photographers. It's like when you book with photographers, you just expect something different, because everybody don't play by the same rule book or something like that. It's just
you gotta have a conversation. It's all about having a conversation. You just gotta sit down. People don't want to talk. They don't want to build rapport. They don't want to have a meeting. They don't want to do a consult. They don't want to do that. They just want to go and deal with the repercussions later. Like, no, come on, man.
That's why
are important.
That's why if you go on my tour site, you'll see, like if you go to click, like the Virginia one, if you just go to check, you'll see there's explanations, and it says my price includes a free consultation, meaning you could instant message me, email me, or call me and ask me those important questions. Because I get a lot of people that tell me, hey, boutique is giving me stuff, and I'll tell them, oh, wait a minute, that's a different ball game. Want to do that? They got to call me directly. And that's when they learn. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll just bring my own clothes, you know, and then they'll come to the shoot with their own clothes and not even bother. Or they'll just kick me to the boutique, and the boutique will reach out and we have a conversation.
So do you just, in your consultation, do you just answer the questions asked, or do you have a set of questions that you ask them and offer up information that maybe they just did not ask?
No, I mean, the primary reason for the consultation is, the first reason is I want to critique what they're going to wear to a shoot. Like, I don't want people to go to a shoot and wear things that are unflattering and don't look cool, especially if they're newer models. And usually the consultation, the newer models usually take advantage of it because they don't know what the skinny is. So they want to, you know, just get some kind of information before they step on the scene. And then 2 is, I might ask them like, what are you bringing? Are you shooting this for yourself, or what is this for? So I can kind of get a creative idea when that turn comes up. What am I kind of gearing my eye and looking for when I shoot? If it's for the model, I'm focusing more on their face, posing, and composition. If it's for a boutique, if they're wearing something, then I'm focusing on garments and how good they look in the light.
Okay, so pretty much, to sum it all up is, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions that you may not even think are important to ask. Just ask questions. Maybe, I think probably for us, and you guys can follow suit if you want to, you don't have to, but I think for us, what I'm going to do is, because I manage a lot of Phil's photography as well. So, I tend to talk a lot to the clients before. And the reason why I do that is because of this whole #MeToo movement. And I'm on set of all of Phil's shoots. Like you're just not gonna accuse him of doing anything because I was there. That didn't happen. And I will punch you in your eye. But I think for me, I'm going to create a questionnaire of like some most frequent asked questions to get people thinking when they start talking about photography. Because I know everybody always says, what are you using the images for? Like that's always everybody's questions. Am I right?
Yeah.
What are you using the images for? And then just throw in, the questions that they should be thinking about outside of that as well. If you're using it for this, you can't do that, if you, whatever the case may be. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
Coming up with different ideas. Because I think, like Nathaniel said earlier, we change our contracts often, per conversation. I may have a conversation with somebody and they bring up something. I'm like, ooh, that's not in my contract. Let me go back and revise that. You know what I mean? So,
You know who helped me with my contract when I was shooting years ago when I shot Leon from the movie The Temptation, Five Heartbeat, actor. We were on set and I was doing it for, back then it was Design Original Magazine. And he sat down, he looked at the release. I was like, sir, you're intimidated. This guy's high profile Hollywood. You're like, sir, can you sign the release? And he's like, hold up, my brother. Whoa. He's like, what's this? And, he's looking at it. He's like, all right, give me a second. I'm going to look at this. Remember, this guy's been around Hollywood for years. For years. He sat there and he was like, just lining things out, writing things. He's like, this is proper and this is kind of good for both for you and the talent. I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And ever since then, I've been using that wording that he fixed for me because he's hired lawyers. He's talked to lawyers over the years. He told me, he was like, he's been in the mix. He don't play around when it comes to his name, his image, and things like that. So, but sometimes, you luck out, sometimes you don't. But, anytime you get good information from somebody, jot it down, take notes.
I hate to say that mine, when I first started out, my contracts and everything started being critiqued by Harvey Starr Washington.
Oh boy. Oh boy. That
when
is
I first
personality.
When I started out, I bought a contract to him because he hired me to shoot one of his shows in Philly. And he looked over, he was like, boy, oh boy. And we went through some things on the contract and everything like that. And he corrected some things. And then from there, it just grew. And to piggyback off of what Jose said, having meetings, like I've done lunch with clients. Like, listen, let's meet for lunch. We can have coffee, whatever, we'll meet, sit down and talk, go over the contract. I'm at the point now where I need to know and see everything that you're doing leading up to the shoot. I need to see the outfit. I need to see the shoes. I need to see what kind of hairstyle. I need to see
it's a partnership all the way up until the day of, and even after the day of, it goes even further to picking your images to say, you know, like you might pick them and I'm like, all right, why'd you pick this one? What about this image did you like that made you pick it? And then when you tell me why, I'll be like, okay, well, look at where your hand is in this shot. Look how your foot is turned crooked.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And these are a lot of things that models, they just see a great image and it's like, oh my God, I love that one. I'm like, all right, look at the foot, look at the hand, look at how your eye looks bigger than the other one, you know? So let's not go with that one. Let's look at, so it's a partnership all the way up until you say, I'm satisfied, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
And then
tell
I'm like,
you,
okay, you're on your way now. So now I go on to my next client.
so when I was learning like the rules of photography and stuff, right? Like me and Phil used to get into arguments all the time, right? Because you know, I have to be the one to sit and go through all those images, you know, when he finished, right? So I going through the images and I pick the ones that I like. Oh, these will look good on this page. This will look good, right? And then he'll start asking me questions like, why you like that photo? What you mean? Because I like it. Like, and then we would get into these whole conversations like John said, well, look at this, look at that, look at where her hair is, like, look at, you know, and I was like, all right. And it used to piss me off in the beginning, but, you know, as I begin to understand it, which goes back to what I was saying before, you know, I really had to learn a lot. I had to become a model. I had to become a photographer, not in every sense of the word, but, you know, being in that place, learning from that aspect. So anyway.
But I also think to piggyback on that, I think it's also important too, and I know we've talked about this topic before, of giving models a little bit too much control, but there are particular high profile models that you kind of want them to approve some photos, especially if, you know, they've agreed to do this shoot and you want their approval on some stuff, because you want that repost. You want them to brag about your work, even as the hairstylist or the photographer. But I've been in situations where a particular model didn't care too much for the pictures. You know, I thought they looked decent, but, you know, I guess compared to what she has been seeing her image, that wasn't the image that it didn't mesh with her brand. And I guess, you know, sometimes when you've invited someone into a shoot that you want in, sometimes you have to sit down and you have to pull ideas. What is it that you want? How do you want to be seen? Because it's not that that person asked you to take pictures of them. You've asked them to be a part of your creativity. So now sometimes you have to work with that model. And I've been around celebrities who will be like, no, it's in my contract. If I do a photo shoot with a magazine, I need to see the images before they release them. But some celebrities don't have that pull. They take pictures and they don't know what they look like until it's on the stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they completely hate it. They've been touched up, they've been darkened, they've been slimmed down. Hair's been lengthened because they completely edited everything to make it look perfect for this stand, and they look nothing like themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making my business to send my client the link so they can preview their photos. Now, even like, again, social media has changed the industry, because I could send previews with my watermark dead center of the image and it says preview only, do not post, and I'll still see them on social media. Girl, I just took these awesome pictures with this photographer and here's the shot, and I'm like, no. Like, how do you post? How do you post?
You know, let me tell you something. I had one of my good friends, right? And she's not in the fashion industry at all, right? She had posted on social media one day. It said she did a photo shoot at, I don't even remember. Matter of fact, no, it was for her daughter's high school graduation. You know, they go to the studio, do their graduation photos, right? So she saw the price tag and she posted on social media. She was like, does anybody have a program where I can remove this?
Tawana, I get that all the time from the graduation pictures from Life Touch and all that. oh my God, I get that. Can you remove this from this image?
No, she wanted to know if somebody can remove it so she can use it and she didn't have to pay all the money to buy the package. That's what she was asking. I was like, chick, you might want to delete that because you're going to have a bunch of photographers coming to kill you.
Listen, just this past year, 2020, when the senior portraits went out for high school, I've had people inbox me and say, can you remove the Life Touch watermark off this image so I can use it? And I'm like, no. Like, why don't you just buy the image? Like, why are you trying to remove their watermark? Like, because they didn't want to spend that money on a package.
You go inside of a store and ask them, excuse me, can you remove the security tag off? And it's like, I can try it.
Yeah.
And I've been in the presence of people who've done stuff like that. And I'm like, sis, what are you doing? I'm not going to be part of this conspiracy.
Okay, so let me ask this final question from y'all, photographers. Have you ever had to sue anyone over copyright infringement?
Came close to it with Fashion Nova, but thank God I didn't. They respected me and they took it down, and that was the end of it. So no.
I've come close to. It was almost there, and things got handled in a different manner. But again, Tawana, as I made the post before, and you commented, it's going to take for somebody to be made an example of, for them to stop adding these filters and writing on these images when they post them on social media.
What's like Nathaniel said earlier, there, and I can't remember the celebrity's name. It was two of them. I read the article. One was sued twice by the same photographer, and then there was another one right behind her that was sued. I cannot remember who it was, but even after we see that, people still want to do what they want to do. So the question John asked on his page was something pertaining to when people
why do people want to ruin a perfectly good image by writing on it or adding filters? And immediately everybody thought I was being like it was pertaining to me. I was just asking a general question because I see it all the time. Like, why would you want to ruin a perfectly good image?
And then my response behind that was because there are no real consequences behind doing so, and that's what I truly believe. I think there is, and this is a no shot to any photographer or anything, but I think that a lot of people threaten with the whole "I'm going to sue you if you don't stop doing it," but it never happens. At least in our industry, nobody has ever really been made an example of. So people are going to still do it.
I mean,
well, Tawana, real quick, there was a case with a well-known photographer, and it was crazy because the person did it. It was a photo of his wife that he took.
I remember that.
And somebody stole the image and did something with it, printed it on all kinds of stuff. Well, it cost that man who stole that image $60,000 for stealing the image. And I tell people this, and they're like, "Oh, that ain't true." And I'm like, "Dude, look, it's on the guy's YouTube channel where he talked about it. The guy stole a picture of his wife, and he sued you, $60,000. And it all depends on what that state max payout is for damages. It can go higher than $60,000 on a payout.
Well, in my experience, some of the people that have done, silly fun things, whatever on the image, if it looks like crap, and I've reached out to them and say, "Hey, can you take that down? I don't like the way it looks," and they comply, and there's no no arguments, no problems, or nothing after that. They respect that, and for the most part, people that have been warned, like that steal, like I've had people actually take my images, make up a Facebook profile that they took the images, and I've had people inbox me like ASAP. Like, look at this clown. He's saying that he took your images and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of them take it down. As soon as you report it, like at least with social media now, they respect it. I mean, out in Europe, the European Union, the copywriting is even, you thought it was strict here. It's stricter over there. Like there's some, I was hearing like there's some stuff, even if it's you and you shot it, like you gotta have permission from yourself, like some ridiculous crap. Like it's just so strict over there. It's just so strict over there that like, I'm like, thank God I'm not in that sector, but if I go to do business, I have to kind of educate myself real quick because there's a lot of laws over there that changed recently.
Well, see, and what a lot of people don't understand, even with the internet, there's laws to protect photographers with the internet. There is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act law that was put out by President Clinton back in 1990 something. I want to say either 3 or 98, where he put out this Digital Copyright Millennial Act, which protects photographers even on the internet, where our images are still protected on the internet. And this is what people don't understand. Like, you know, even on the internet is protection. It's not, you know, I did a Google, oh my God, I did a Facebook search and one of my images came up in the Facebook group as a header. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
And I reached out to the person that owned the group and, oh, she got ignorant. And I was like, well, how about this? How about that you can be reported and sued for using the image without my permission? Just because you did a Facebook search and saw the image and decided to use it, my watermark, my signature is still on that image. To the left of her breast is my signature.
Yep. I've had so many of my pictures stolen and used on websites and tagged like, oh, this is not you. And I mean, I've had customers like, didn't you do her hair? I was like, yeah, but I don't know why they making it seem like, you know, that's people. I mean, the internet has been a blessing, but a curse. It has created these pseudo entrepreneurs for people. You know, they've created these pseudo lifestyles. Like, I'm this famous person, I'm this, that, and the third, but this is not your work. This is maybe what you aspire to be. That's why wording is so important. Put down this as your inspiration. But if you're posting it and you don't put any description, you're alluding that you've done the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So final piece of advice.
Go ahead, John. I'll let you kick it off.
Final piece of advice, I say, models, consumers, whomever, do your research. Build that reputation with the photographer you're going to hire. Talk to them, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions because you're investing your money. You're spending your money and you want to know what you're getting. So I say, you know, take that time out and talk and do your research. And don't just jump and go with a photographer, any photographer, just because of what you see on the internet. Research. Do your research.
I kind of agree with John there. It's just if you're coming into the business, you want to learn. I mean, just because you know you learn the runway doesn't stop there. Learn the runway, the print, what it is, and all the jargon and everything. Ask questions, and Google, you know, fortunately, is a trove of information when it comes to this.
Go ahead, Nathaniel. Final piece of advice.
Final piece of advice, know what you want first. Know what you want, know what you're looking for, have a budget, and don't be afraid to have the conversation. Let's talk, let's meet up and ask all the questions, whether you think it's a dumb question or not. Take notes, do your research like they said, but go into the meeting having an idea of what you want. Don't just be all over the place. Because I mean, the photographer can't help you if you all over the place. But eventually, if you're gonna get with Jose or John, they're gonna narrow you down quickly because you've been like you all over the place. So just have an idea, general idea of what you want. Because as creatives, we can't work with that mentality that is all up in the air. I can't work with that.
Right.
You gotta narrow that beam.
Yeah, we gotta narrow that down a little bit.
So for me, my final piece of advice, I wrote down pretty much what Nathaniel said is when you're going into a photo shoot, go in knowing exactly what it is that you need. And don't think that you're just booking a general photo shoot, that you're going to use the images for anything and everything. And my other piece of advice was, and this is always my piece of advice, don't do anything without contracts. Contracts. If you are not presented with a contract, then you need to ask for one. And the last thing, I know I said that was the last thing, but that's not the last thing. The last thing is definitely research and learn, the copyright laws for as it pertains to photography, and just learn the industry as a whole. And that is my piece of advice. So thank you
From the
guys.
death
I
of Tawana
appreciate you.
Blassingame.
We'll be back. Oh yeah. Wait a minute. I upgraded I upgraded to an office. Everybody had a desk at one point. Now everybody using that from the desk up. No shade, but so I moved up. I elevated myself. I am now my hashtag is now from the office up. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week with episode 5. You was gonna say something, Jose?
I said thank you for having us.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
You'll be back.
Oh, this has honestly been great for me because I've not really had a conversation with either one of these two. I see them around. Hey, how you doing? But it's good to really hear, what's going on in their mind of theirs.
And I bring people together. Come on now.
There we go.
Yes, QSM TV episode 5 next week, Thursday, 7:30. Come back and have a conversation with us. I don't know what we're talking about yet because I have so many things on my list to talk about. And each season is only 6 episodes, so, and I have like 20 things on my list. So I don't know what episode 5 is going to look like yet. But thank you again, everybody, and you guys definitely please have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
You too. Love y'all. Listen, anytime you need me, Hit me up. I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Everybody have a good night and stay safe.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, y'all.
Bless.
Great. I'll let